evening. My name is Carolyn Schoenberger, and I'm an attorney with the Chicago Legal Clinic, and I have with me a wonderful guest, Atty Salata, who is in private practice but is here on behalf of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Thank you for coming, Aditha.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So before we begin the program, I just received breaking news that a judge has blocked the Muslim ban, the travel ban, that the most recent version by President Trump. I don't have much in the way of information on that, but we do have breaking news, so we're actually very happy about that. I suggest that you watch more television to find out what is going on, but apparently there is a block. The state of Hawaii asked the court to stop the travel ban, at least on a temporary basis. And the breaking news that just came in 3 seconds ago is that it has been blocked, and that's all I know. So I think we're very happy about that. Having spent some time at O'Hare, I have to mention that the people who were looking for assistance were people primarily from India, Nigeria, and also from Ghana and Jamaica, because people who had valid visitors' visas were not being allowed into the country. So I guess, Aditha, we got to go back and talk a little bit about why we are here tonight. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Chicago Legal Clinic, which was founded in 1982 by two new lawyers, and they wanted to establish a low-cost clinic in the south side of Chicago, the southeast side, because at some point that had been a thriving community. But when the steel mills closed, people lost their jobs and were unable to spend money because they didn't have it. They were losing their homes. They couldn't go to local restaurants and buy things locally because they didn't have the money, so the local businesses were going out of business. And the Chicago Legal Clinic started in really one small room. Today, the Chicago Legal Clinic has 4 neighborhood offices: South Chicago, Pilsen, where I am, Austin, and downtown. Plus, there are free clinics dealing with foreclosure, child support in the courts, and there is a free clinic for students at Harold Washington College, where I'm also on the faculty. And I have to put in a plug, we're starting a new paralegal program. So, again, the Chicago Legal Clinic assists people with problems like child support, Social Security, disability, wills, powers of attorney, guardianships, of course, immigration, which is the issue of the hour. And if you have questions, you can go to any of the free clinics at the Daily Center, or if you're a student at Harold Washington College, come to the Chicago Legal Clinic office at the college. If you have other questions dealing with immigration, guardianship, Social Security, disability, wills, real estate, please call the number that is in back of me, 773-731-1762, 773-731-1762, between the hours of 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So again, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So I'm going to now repeat what I said in Spanish. So, buenas tardes. Me llamo Carolina Schoenberger y quiero decirle un poco de la Clínica Legal de Chicago. La Clínica Legal de Chicago fue establecido en 1982 por 2 nuevos abogados que querían ayudar a la gente del sur de Chicago. Antes de 1980 había muchas acerías en el sur de Chicago, pero se cerraron las acerías y la gente que trabajaba en las acerías perdieron sus trabajos. También los negocios en el sur de Chicago sufrieron por la falta de clientes. En este barrio no había ninguna oficina legal ofreciendo ayuda legal a bajo costo. Entonces, los 2 abogados establecieron la clínica legal en un solo cuarto. Actualmente hay 4 oficinas de la clínica de Chicago, en el sur de Chicago, Pilsen, por donde trabajo yo, Austin, y en el centro también hay varias oficinas en las cortes que ofrecen ayuda legal gratuita, por nada, gratis, a la gente con problemas de mantenimiento de los niños, con foreclosure. Hay también una oficina en Harold Washington College en donde soy profesora que ofrece ayuda legal gratis por los estudiantes. Si tiene un problema legal como inmigración, violencia doméstica, bienes raíces, seguro social por gente incapacitada, testamentos, tutorías, poderes, hay de llamar a la Clínica Legal de Chicago entre las horas de 9 hasta las 5 de la tarde, del lunes a viernes. Llama a 773-731-1762. So, tenemos mucha información esta noche, pero como yo dije, acabo de leer que hace unos minutos un juez federal hizo una orden para parar temporariamente el poder ejecutivo del presidente Trump contra la gente que quería venir aquí de 6 países musulmanos. Y eso es una parada legal, una injunction que el gobierno no se puede continuar por un momento. So, sí, es importante ver las noticias, a ver lo que tiene. So tonight, again, I want to welcome Adita to the show, and we're going to talk about your rights. So there's a lot of fear out there, and we're going to spend a brief period of time talking about fear and then talking about emergency planning and how this fits in with immigration. So, Adita, who are the people who have the most to fear about immigration coming to their house?
Considering the most recent developments with the new administration and a number of executive orders that were issued, I think the two categories of people that have to, I guess, fear most would be people with criminal convictions, serious criminal convictions, and individuals with prior orders of removals. You would have to think that those two categories would be the ones that would be looked over at first in terms of the priorities.
And yet people are convinced that there are going to be armies of Customs and Border Control people, that there are going to be ICE agents, immigrant and customs enforcement roaming the streets and grabbing people off the streets. Do you think that's realistic?
So regardless of, so to speak, the propaganda that one might hear, whether it's via news, fake news, we have to realize that pragmatically speaking, we can't really, even if the administration wanted to, it's really impossible to address or apprehend everybody who does not have documented status in the United States all at once. So realistically, I really don't think that the fear, the way that it's spread and amplified in the media, that it would translate itself into the reality.
Okay, and I think that's very, very well put. But let's assume that you're in one of the categories, that you have a criminal conviction, a serious crime, that you have a prior order of deportation, but you never left. What would you tell people in that situation, in addition to going to see a lawyer like now? What would you tell them? Someone comes to your door, what do you do?
Generally speaking, I would recommend that the person develops a plan of action for, we all hope for the best, but we want to be prepared for the worst case scenario. So we would start with making sure that we have a file at home with all the documents that are relevant to this person's immigration history as well as criminal history, if there is any.
So the Chicago Legal Clinic actually prepared a plan that lists some of the documents, documents like birth certificates, medical records. There are some lists that we think should be written down, and in our plan you can actually write them down there. For example, the schools where your children go. What's their schedule? What's the address? Doctors, names, any medicines that are being taken, doctors' numbers. People are afraid, maybe they want to have their rent paid, something may rent have to be paid if, God forbid, they're detained. So list all of the places where you're going to have monthly payments. And that would go in emergency plan. And who should have access to an emergency plan, do you think?
Well, it will depend on this particular individual's network. So obviously you would look into your family, your close family, distant relatives, or anybody else, particularly if there is a close person that is documented. I would advise perhaps connect with that member of the family or a friend that could help us out in a case of emergency.
So a lot of people have been talking about guardianships and powers of attorney. And that's a topic that we actually do want to talk about. So a guardianship can be through the courts, and it's a court process where someone immediately is directed by the court to take responsibility. Generally, it could be of a minor child or disabled adult. And there's a guardianship over the person, their health needs, and also over their finances. And the courts will not let someone become a guardian who is not documented. However, once the judge, it is the safest way. You have a judge who is there who basically is supervising the situation. And so, but if you are not able to do a guardianship, then we're talking about a different time.
Correct. Then we also have to consider powers of attorney. So maybe you can explain to our viewers a little bit about how this document works.
Okay, so just to finish up on the guardianships, there is a temporary, a short-term guardianship that can last for 365 days and can be renewed. But there are problems with that because not everyone recognizes that it is valid. So we just had a case in the office where there's a young citizen child with a heart problem, and the hospital may or may not recognize the short-term guardianship. So the best legal advice is she has an older sister over the age of 21 to actually file a court guardianship, because you don't want to take the risk of something happening and the hospital not recognizing the short-term guardianship. But if I'm doing a guardianship and that is the only alternative, I would want to see a police record, not only of the guardian, I want to see a police record of everyone in the household to make sure there are no problems. And I would want to explain to the guardians that there are very significant responsibilities, financial, possibly criminal possibilities if there's neglect, to make sure they understand what their responsibilities are, should they even become a short-term guardian, just in case someone is detained. So it's a fairly major responsibility. Talking about powers of attorney, oh my goodness. First of all, you have to be a lawyer to prepare a guardianship. Notaries, real estate offices, well-meaning people in community-based organizations, if they're not lawyers, they should not and legally cannot prepare guardianships. And if they do, they are legally responsible if there's a problem. So, again, the word is going out that you have to do so. Powers of attorney, a little less so, but when you give someone the immediate authority to take care of your finances, you're giving quite a lot of power to them, aren't you?
That is true, and I think it's important to consider the implications of this decision.
Okay, so we have a caller. Hello.
Yes, good evening. Do you guys work with the immigration at all? Legal clinic?
Well, I am an attorney with the Chicago Legal Clinic, and Adita is in private practice who handles private clients.
Oh, okay. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I was born here.
Thank you for your service.
But why can't the people think? But why can't the people that are here that don't have the citizenship or anything? Why can't they earn? Why can't they go to the service for 4 years? 4 years now.
Because they are not, I think people would be very happy, extremely happy to volunteer. I have students who would like to enlist, but you are technically not able to enlist unless you are in this country legally.
Okay,
So again, but I want to thank you for your call and I want to thank you for your service. So we're not here to debate what has to happen. We're here to give people what their rights are. And we're talking about powers of attorney, and we're talking about the dangers of giving someone basically permission to take a second mortgage on your house. And if you were drafting a power of attorney, again, you would go to a lawyer who might want to give specific authority to what can and cannot be done.
Correct. So you would basically want to draft a document that you understand, you as a client would understand what exactly are the powers that you're giving out, and that at the same time the person who would be in a way empowered to perform certain acts, that they also do have an understanding of their obligations and implications of that document.
So again, this is something, a drafting that an attorney would have to do. Now, again, people are going to religious institutions, well-meaning community-based organizations, and they're signing away a lot of their rights and maybe not understanding what they're doing. And there are attorneys, in fact, there are many pro bono attorneys where there are clinics where people who are lawyers are able to assist, and I would watch for notice of those clinics where people can go and where people can get assistance with powers of attorney, with guardianships. There are low-cost clinics. There are excellent attorneys who can help with this. But I think it's critically important that people get competent help and not panic, because the panic, as Adita was saying, there's not the manpower to go door by door to pick up people. And again, the priorities are the priorities.
Correct. So we are basically looking at individuals with criminal convictions or prior orders of removal. And I agree that we need to have a plan in place. However, we need to be smart about how we put that strategy together. And when we do give out the rights or powers, make sure that those are narrowly tailored, and that both parties are aware of their, what's being delegated and what their obligations are.
So we have another caller. Good evening. Hello? Well, I guess we don't have another caller. Thank you anyway. So when we talk about having a narrow plan, again, it's important to have documents or copies of documents. And I hadn't even thought about it, but someone's suggesting keys to the house. Extra set of keys.
Correct, and I guess that goes for any type of emergency. That you want to have someone with access to your unit. And also, I think you can take certain steps. For example, with banking accounts, where you don't really need a power of attorney per se. You can just authorize somebody else to have access, and you can do it. You can work with either an NGO or your immigration attorney to sort of develop a plan, a fallback provisions. What's going to happen if in a worst case scenario.
So again, I think it's really important if to do this, to have a plan. So we have another caller. Hello? Hello, do we have a caller?
Hi. Español, ¿verdad?
Sí, voy a tratar de hablar un buen español. Sí.
Sí.
Entonces.
Okay, I can try in English. So, I'm an American citizen.
Okay. I'm not hearing you.
Ok, y quiero felicitar a mi esposo.
Okay. You want to help your husband. Quería ayudar a
él-
su esposo.
Yes, pero él tuvo un arresto por posesión de droga.
Ah. He has an arrest for, prior arrest for possession of
Pero su
drugs.
caso fue dismissed.
Y otra vez, por favor. Repite, por favor, porque no podemos oírle bien. ¿Tiene posesión de drogas y qué dijo después?
Ok, que fue arrestado por posesión de droga para uso personal. El caso fue deshecho. Solamente estuvo en la cárcel un día y fue todo lo que pasó.
Okay, so he was jailed for a day. Okay, es importante que consigue todos los documentos a ver lo que pasó, que fue en la cárcel, encarcelada por un día, si fue felonía o un crimen pequeño, y hablar con un abogado lo más pronto posible. ¿Ok? Normalmente está buscando gente con felonías, pero no sabemos lo que va a pasar y lo mejor es consigue los documentos, hablar con un abogado y haga un plan de emergencia. Como están hablando, un plan de emergencia.
Ok.
Sí, pero es importante conseguir los documentos. ¿Fue cargos criminales federales?
No, no. Su caso, hicimos el expungement y su caso fue sellado.
Ok, pero inmigración no reconoce cuando
No,
alguien trata de limpiar los documentos.
Sí, entiendo.
Ok, so hable con un abogado porque hay una manera de conseguir documentos y vea un abogado lo más pronto posible.
Ok.
Ok, gracias señora y mucha suerte. So this was a case where someone had been in jail for one day dealing with the possession of drugs. We don't know if it's a felony. We don't know if it's a misdemeanor. And they expunged the conviction, which is usually a very good
Right.
idea, except with immigration.
Correct. So, and I think it's important to note that immigration has a different definition of conviction, and expungement really has no bearing on the consequences. Sometimes it actually be a deterrence or complication. Let's say if somebody applies for naturalization and we don't have the records. But from what I could understand, what you were saying, it's really important in a situation like this to ensure that we talk to an attorney and that we have access to certified disposition and the court file itself, so that the attorney can look over exactly what type of conviction is this, and analyze the particular statute and determine whether or not we can be then penalized and have some type of bar in place. And even if we do, then we can look at ways to address this.
So even if the court record has been sealed, you can go to court to try to get documents out of that.
Correct, and sometimes that would come up in cases in my practice. For example, if I have a permanent resident who has certain type of minor conviction, subsequently a well-meaning attorney would expunge the record, and then my client, for example, would like to proceed with naturalization, which is a different topic, but we basically would need to unexpunge the case, sort of to get copies of the documents that we need.
So the bottom line is, as we wrap up, we want to just mention how important it is to get good legal advice from an attorney. And there are going to be workshops for attorneys with powers of attorney and guardianships. And there are also going to be workshops where you can talk to people, but it's important to make sure that you don't panic, you have your emergency plan, and that you proceed slowly and, again, working out, a just-in-case scenario. So I want to thank Adita for coming on the show. Thank you very much. Please, I guess the best advice that I can tell people is don't do anything stupid right now. Be careful out there and take care. And we want to thank you again for watching the show. Thank you, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you for having me.